am successful.
Today we're going to be talking about relationships, we're going to be talking about marriages and families, and I know that you're very passionate about this. And so from your perspective as a pastor, having presided over thousands of people, families, marriages in the last 2-3 decades, what exactly is going on? Because globally, the statistic reveals that 1 in 2 marriages is ending up in divorce, and in Nigeria, 7 out of every 10 marriages is ending up in one form of separation or the other. From your experience, what exactly is going on?
I think the first thing is that people rush into marriage. They're not really prepared for it. They don't understand it, but because society says after you reach a certain age you should be married, people don't see the warning signs if a marriage is going to be successful at this juncture.
Wow. So guys are subjecting themselves to social pressure, family pressure, and they're ill-equipped. They're not trained. And that brings me to the point that I always bring out, and I say, if you want to be a successful businessman, you go to business school. You want to be a successful engineer, civil engineer, you go to civil engineering school. If you want to be a successful medical doctor, you go to medical school. But it seems like in this day and age, there's no school that people go to for life lessons. There's no school that they go to for relationship lessons. There is no school that they go to for marriage lessons. And so, there's this concept of Mind the Gap, X, that both of us started. And this is simply because we realize that people need to go to school. And so what is the concept from your perspective of Mind the Gap?
Well, Mind the Gap, as you know, is something you hear here in Europe about trains, the gap between the platform and the train. And there's a gap in marriage, and we're saying mind the gap, because if you fall into the gap, you're in trouble. Now, there is a school for marriage, and that's the family. But the family seems to have failed in preparing people for marriage. So what we're doing is we're saying, look, there are certain things that you need to be aware of, you need to understand, and we're going over the whole process. We started with the last edition of Mind the Gap, dealing with the pillars of marriage, and the next one, which comes up in a couple of weeks, is dealing with finance and marriage. So these are
Pst Wale, you made a very, very sound point in the regard of the original school that was set up for marriages was the family. That is the family that you came out from, and the values you learned from your family, the principles you learned from your family, the beliefs that you brought out of your family. And today there are lots of dysfunctional families, which is the product of dysfunctional father, dysfunctional mother, dysfunctional siblings, creating a dysfunctional environment that's producing dysfunctional children who now go out to marry other dysfunctional children, and then they create their own dysfunctional families. And so the institution that was originally set up to bring about great marriages itself, is suffering. And so Mind the Gap X is about identifying where the red flags are. It's identifying where the gaps are. It's identifying where the danger is. And so the next edition of Mind the Gap is themed family and finances. And how does this work? Where we realize that we need to bring experts to educate us, to inform us about where the challenges are. And so we have a serious array of speakers. We've got Pastor Olumide Emmanuel, who is the CEO of Common Sense Group and the president of the Entrepreneurship Academy. He's going to be talking about family finances. We've got Fumi Oyetunji, the CEO of Abitos Financial Services Limited and a non-executive director of EcoBank. She's going to be talking about family investment. I am going to be speaking from the perspective of being a life coach and a psychologist and a behavioral change psychotherapist. I'm going to be talking about the psychology of money. Pst Wale Adefarasin is going to be talking about God and money. And after that morning session, which runs from 8 a.m. to about 12 noon, we're going to sit in a panel for about an hour, 30 minutes, and we're going to be, taking questions on the theme God, marriage, and money. And you don't want to miss that first part of it. Then the afternoon session, we're going to be having the speakers speak from 1 p.m. To 3 p.m. And we have speakers like Dr. Olusola, who is the Deputy Managing Director and the CEO of Vetiva Capital Management Limited. And he's going to be talking on the topic of investments in short, medium, and long terms. We have Aisha Ahmad, that's the head of consumer banking of Diamond Bank and the chairperson of WIMBI. She's going to be talking to us from a woman's perspective, and she's going to be dealing with practical steps to building wealth. We have Olusola, who is a wealth coach. She's going to be talking about managing your personal finances. And so after that afternoon session, we're also going to be having a panel discussion where we're going to be taking on questions, and the theme for the second panel is wealth creation and wealth management. And the most important part of the session is the 3 p.m. to the 5 p.m. sessions, where we're going to be having group one-on-one coaching for people that have serious financial issues in their marriages and in their families, for couples that are struggling with their finances, and couples that are struggling with anything in their relationship. And the date is Saturday the 4th of June, and the time is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, I don't know what it is that you could be doing that could be more important than attending this program. And the venue is the Guiding Light Assembly. Thank you, Pastor Wale, for giving us the venue. It's a Guiding Light Assembly house at Parkview, Ikoyi. Now, the fee is 10,000 for couples. And if you are a single person and you want to attend, if you are engaged and you want to attend, if your spouse or your partner is not in town, there's 5,000 for you as an individual. I want you to note that there's coffee, there is lunch, full lunch that is going to be available. So how do you register? Just, number one, go to Mind the Gap X. That is one word, Mind the Gap XX. That is Mind the Gap XX at gmail.com, and go and signify your interest, or go to our Facebook page, that is Mind the Gap Facebook page, or send a message to us on Twitter, on Instagram with the hashtag MindTheGapX. You've got to note that registration closes on the 27th of May. Now, when you send your interest by sending an email to mindthegapxx at gmail.com, we'll give you the bank details for you to pay, and then you will get your ticket. Now, it's important that we understand that, look, this is a commitment to the well-being of individuals. This is a commitment to transforming people's relationships and people's lives. I have met people who have had issues in their marriages, and their lives have gone on a path that they don't want it to go. So, Pastor Wale, what are the challenges in the 21st century that marriages are experiencing?
Okay, let me talk about financial challenges to start with.
Yeah.
In the 50s and probably into the 60s, women were almost exclusively housewives. And then in the 70s, they started working. Today, a wife may earn even more than the husband, and that brings some social challenges into the marriage. They don't know how to handle, a wife that earns more than her husband. And then you now have it's complicated by the fact that money is scarce. Okay? Our society expects a certain level of socializing. You can't have a wedding without having expensive ashwabi and all those things. And they all put a lot of pressure on marriage. Children's schools, very expensive these days. So There's a lot of financial pressure on marriage. I think that's one of the key problems of marriage. Then you have infidelity. It's also killing marriages. So.
Wow. And how do you manage your finances? Now, Pastor Wale has broken it down. Number one, there's social pressure. And a lot of people focus on the wedding rather than the marriage. They spend tens of millions, 20s of millions on the wedding. And we realize that the wedding is really not for the couple.
Just one day.
It's one day and it's for the parents. And that poses another challenge which, we need to begin to tackle. Who is the wedding for? Is it for the couple or is it for the parent? And from the research we did, we realized that the wedding really is for the parent. Now, what is the benefit of wasting 10 million, 20 million naira when the couple, after that day, they do not have 200,000 naira to their name?
It's
the social pressure. The parents are using the wedding to outwit each other. So it's a competition. Oh, because this family did this, when our children want to marry, we too, we must do this. And it makes no sense. So how about going back to the days when, parents will give you the 10 million naira and say, what, go and start your lives, go and start your business, go and start your family. Let's just go to church, let's just do this wedding and do a small reception afterwards.
See, it comes down to values. Once upon a time, in this nation, people didn't care what other people thought about them. They did what they felt was right. But today, it's an overriding concern for so many people that what will people think? So it's down to values again.
And so, at the Mind the Gap X, the financial episode, we're going to be helping you break down how to psychologically deal with this social pressure. 1, 2, if you are in a difficult financial situation, how do we help you get out of it? If you are in debt, how do we help you get out of it? Do you even understand what money really is all about? Do you know the relationship between God and money? Because a lot of people use God to serve the God of money, and really they think they're serving God, but they're serving, the God of money. So what is the interplay? What is the dynamic between God and money? And of course, what is family investments? Because look, if you don't invest as a family, then tomorrow, in your latter years when you cannot work, what are you going to be surviving on? Especially if you married late. And then you now started having children late. And in your 60s, you have children that are still in secondary school, universities. Pastor Wale has noted that school fees no be small thing. It's so expensive. And especially these days when our schools are not, delivering the kind of education that we want. And a lot of people want their children to go to school abroad. With this new exchange rate, what are we going to do? So planning your family finances is very, very key. So Pastor Wale, looking at finances as a major challenge in marriages, what are the practical steps? Not giving out a lot of information. Let people come to Mind the Gap X.
One of the things that changed the West, starting in Europe, was the Protestant Reformation. And one of the key pillars of the Protestant Reformation was the teaching on savings and investment. A lot of people just feel, I don't have enough, how can I save? But you have no choice but to save, because we need to begin to learn that what we need are multiple streams of income, not just income tied to one employer. So savings and investment makes a lot of difference. And we have experts that will be talking to us about these areas at Mind the Gap X.
Yeah, so, we're not just going to be talking about this thing from the Christian or Christianese perspective. That is very, very critical as a foundation. What drives you? Is it, purposeful living? Is it wanting to blow, as they call it, wanting to make money just from any and everything? or living your life based on values and solving, problems that you are wired to solve using the gifts that God has invested in you? Is that what drives you? Or is it money? You must make money at all costs. And what are the consequences of all of those things? Pastor Wale has talked about the fact that, savings and investment is very, very critical. So we have professionals that are going to be talking to you about color coding your expenses. There's the red color, there's the yellow color, there's the black color that you use to code your expenses. You need to come to Mind the Gap X to learn how to color code and then how to move finances from the black column into a savings account. Also, I have a big question. Do you have, an account where when you get into trouble, you can always go to saving? Yes. We need an account whereby, when we're in big trouble, when we have an emergency, we can always go to. What if you couldn't earn for 12, 18 to 24 months? Would you still be able to sustain your family? If you don't have that emergency fund that you would use to sustain your family, if you cannot earn for 12 months, 18 months, or 24 months, you're in big trouble. Big, big, big trouble. Another thing is, do you have a will? Another thing is, do you have a health insurance? Because we find out that people that go into bankruptcy in their latter years is as a result of health challenges. And people are falling ill, and their finances are not able to manage the health situation. And so you find out that a lot of people will put all their money into recovery, and that wipes out all their savings and all their investments. So what are you doing for your spiritual, psychological, emotional, and physical well-being? It's very, very important. Also, so Pastor Wale, what are the, apart from savings and investments, what are the other things that you would advise, that couples, intending couples begin to do? Because that's where it starts from.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, marriage is about two people sharing one life. So whatever decisions you take, especially in finances, should not be individual decisions, but joint decisions of the couple. If a couple can sit together, budget, because this is something that just is alien to our culture. Budgeting in the family. Because if you don't budget, you will spend more than you intended to. So budgeting is crucial. And doing things together, working together, rather than one person just laying down the law and saying this is how we're going to do it, because two heads are better than one.
So Pastor Wale, what is your perspective about joint accounts as couples?
Well, I think you've got to be a couple before it can work. You've got to have a single mind. I think it's a good idea for couples to have joint accounts, because it says that you're working together on your finances. Nobody's hiding something from the other. But where couples are not in sync, which shouldn't be the case, then joint accounts can become a problem.
It will be a major problem. And this is one of the parameters that you use to identify how close and how in sync you are. If you cannot trust each other with money, what really can you trust each other with?
Absolutely.
Yes, they say that where your money is, that's where your heart ultimately will be. So if both of you are not one, in spirit, in soul, and in body, right? If you psychologically and emotionally are not connected as one and in sync, how can you sit down together and agree that, this month, this is what our budget will be, this is what our inflows will be, this is what our savings will be, this is what we're going to invest in, and we're going to be taking you through those practical steps at Mind the Gap X. It is easier said than done, and that's why we're going to be having coaches that are going to come on, financial coaches that are going to work with you from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. to begin to work through your finances. Pastor Wale, people are asking, what are the steps to take? What are the things to do when you are dating? What are the red flags? What are the things that you need to look out for? What are the conversations you need to have whilst you're dating before you get into getting engaged and getting married? And then how long do you recommend that people should date?
God created us spirit, soul, and body. And our first relationship should be at the spirit level. And when I say spirit level, I'm not saying spiritual. I'm saying spirit to spirit. Some people have an aggressive spirit, some people have a gentle spirit. The second level is soul to soul. The physical level God has reserved for the marriage bed. So now soul to soul means you need to engage each other. You need to talk to each other. You need to be able to be free enough with each other to be able to say, look, this is my secret ambition. These are things I don't talk to anybody else about. That's something that we should learn during the process of courtship. I think that a minimum courtship should be at least 6 months, because it'll take that to get to know each other well enough to know whether you are compatible.
So, wow, spirit, soul, and physical. So, Pastor Wale, what are the common areas of lack of understanding that bring about challenges for couples?
Well, I think first of all, couples have come from different homes. They may even have come from the same social background. And because they've come from different homes, they have different practices. They may have different values. And, they come into a melting pot, and sometimes it takes some time to get used to each other. So that's one of the things that sometimes a father may want his school to go to this kind of school, the mother wants another kind of school. They've got to talk. They've got to discuss. They've got to be like adults, mature people, bring their points to the table and evaluate the pros and cons and be very open about it.
Wow. And that brings me to the 5 pillars that we've always talked about and the foundation. We say that the foundation of every marriage should be God. The spiritual context cannot be overemphasized, and we should not belittle it. It is God that cements the two people together, and it's God that instituted marriage and that platform. And then there's the pillar of kindness. There's the pillar of knowing and understanding each other. There's the pillar of friendship. There's the pillar of empathy and compassion, and there's the pillar of maturity. And we've talked about all of these pillars in one way, shape, or form. Pastor Wale, what is the role of friendship in relationships?
Well, I say to people that don't even decide that you're getting married until you have started some measure of premarital counseling, because along the way you will realize whether you are actually friends or if you're just two people that have decided to marry. I think that we need to put chemistry aside so that we can concentrate on getting to know one another, getting to know what makes the other person tick, because these are the things you will forget the chemistry after you've gotten married. Sometime after you've gotten married, the chemistry won't be like it was before. So what will keep the marriage going is the friendship, the intimacy, the mental intimacy that you've created.
Pastor Wale, we've got a lot of young people that are listening to us, and I'm sure the question that is ringing in their head is, what is chemistry?
Well, I think chemistry, what I mean by chemistry is the things that make people lust after one another.
So the physical part of it, sex, premarital sex, kissing, petting, necking, and all of those things.
Physical attraction.
Yes, it's important, but you've got to rein it in, because it will cloud your judgment, it will cloud your decisions, it will cloud the conversations that you want to talk about from experience. Look, when you start getting into the physical chemistry and the sexual, that is all you want to do. The next time you meet, when you set up an appointment, that is what you are setting up an appointment for. And so any other thing is just the first step that will lead you to the final step. And then when you get into it, it's impossible for you to have those difficult conversations. Look, having conversations about your background and how you relate with your mother, or how you relate with your friend, or how you relate with your father, or the things that you have seen, some behaviors and habits that you have seen that is a no-no for you, will be difficult to have if you've gotten into the chemistry of the relationship. And Pastor Wale from experience says that, you know what, you will be tired later on. So, you know, pace yourself, and it's something that is worth waiting for. It's something that you can delay the gratification for, but focus on identifying whether you are friends or not. And look, there are premarital sessions that we are holding. If you are interested in the premarital sessions that we're holding, just call 080 770 77000. If you have met someone, you want to profile yourselves, you want to identify whether you're compatible, you want to understand, you know, what drives that person, you want to understand what their values are, you want to understand their backgrounds, you want to run those profile tests, you want to know what those red flags are, and you want to begin to identify the red flags in your relationship, that is in your friendship. There are different profiling tests that we have developed, and if you are interested in, you know, sorting yourselves out on the level of friendship before you get into courtship or dating, just send a text to 080 770 77000. So, Pastor Wale, if someone came to you as a couple and they were in serious trouble, and there was a word or two advices that you would give them, what would it be?
Well, first of all, let me quickly just digress a little bit and say for Rotimi, don't throw the baby out of the bathwater. Get in touch with the number that you've been given, so that maybe yourself and your friend can talk it through. What would be the first thing I would say to people that are really, you know, you've got to talk. You've got to talk. You know, ultimately, it is a couple that resolve the problems with each other. Sometimes they need a little bit of help. They need professional help. They need spiritual help. But ultimately, it's the couple that will come to the solution. So talking is the first thing. And when you approach a conversation, go with an open mind. Don't go in a confrontational manner, but go to have a discussion, not a confrontation. I think that's the first thing.
Wow, and as Pastor Wale put it, it's all about talking and having a conversation. But let me give you a model that you use to have a conversation. I call it the SOI. S stands for what is the standard that you want to see? What is the outcome that you want from this conversation? Because if you go into a conversation without an outcome, without a desired goal, it will just be gist, empty talk. So both of you need to sit down and agree, what do we want to achieve at the end of this conversation? Then focus on observed behaviors. That's the O. Focus on observed behaviors. Don't say that, you know what, X said to me, B said that this is what you are doing. Oh, you are a bad boy, you are irresponsible. Focus on behaviors that you have evidences for and that you need your spouse to change. So don't think and, you know, bring in what other people are saying that you have no evidence about. Focus on observed behaviors. Then identify the impact that the goal will have on your relationship and on your life, and the impact that the observed behavior, when it is changed, will have. So when you are going into conversations, difficult conversations, use the SOI model. That is, what is the standard and what is the ultimate outcome that you want to take away from this conversation? And don't use man's standard. Don't use Mr. X's standard or Mrs. Y's standard. Use the standard of truth, not what is true, because what is true is different from truth. Truth is universal to everyone. So what is truth? Find what is truth, identify what the desired outcome will be, and what the ultimate standard. And the ultimate standard is usually God's standard. So find out what the universal God standard is that both of you will agree to, and what that ultimate outcome and desire is. Then, secondly, observe behavior. look for and talk about things that you have circumstantial evidence about, that you have seen and experienced. Don't talk about the person. Talk about the behavior. And ultimately, what is the impact on the behavior on your relationship if it remains the same? What will be the impact on your relationship if that behavior changes? And what will be the impact on your relationship and your marriage and your life if you guys achieve the ultimate goal that you set out to achieve? Pastor Wale, thank you very much for coming on Be All You Can Be.
Thank you very much for having me.